On a Tuesday evening in April, a blockade of heavy trucks shut down the O'Connell Street Bridge in the center of Dublin. The protest against fuel costs paralyzed the city so effectively that the government eventually called in the military to reopen the roads. This wasn't a slow decline. Within days of the protest starting, 600 stations, over a third of the country's fuel infrastructure, simply ran out of gas. Panic buying took over, and the country's transport network began to freeze. While the protests were local, the cause was thousands of miles away. Conflict in the Middle East had led to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which severed the primary oil supply line between the Persian Gulf and Europe. It was a stark demonstration of a modern reality. The stability of a neighborhood in Ireland is now directly tied to geopolitical friction on the other side of the planet. Ireland was just one link in a chain reaction. Within weeks, energy-driven strikes and economic disruptions followed in India, Norway, and the Philippines as global prices spiked. In every one of these countries, the political reaction was identical. Leaders and the public began calling for absolute energy independence, demanding that their nations produce everything they need within their own borders. This goal of total self-sufficiency is framed as the ultimate protection against global chaos. However, historical attempts to actually achieve it have consistently run into the same practical wall. This pattern started in 1973, when Arab oil producers, led by Saudi Arabia, halted exports to countries supporting Israel. The embargo triggered an immediate global energy shock. In the United States, the impact was visceral. Drivers spent hours in lines that stretched for blocks, only to find strict rationing at the pump and signs warning that the fuel had already run out. President Richard Nixon responded by announcing Project Independence. He told a shaken public the nation would mobilize with the intensity used to reach the moon. His promise was specific. By 1980, the United States would meet all of its own energy needs from its own resources, ending any reliance on foreign suppliers. The data shows a different outcome. By the 1980 deadline, American reliance on foreign oil hadn't dropped to zero. It actually accounted for 40% of the nation's total supply. Total isolation proved impossible for a modern economy. The infrastructure, logistics, and raw demand of a growing nation simply cannot be sustained by cutting itself off from the global market. While the isolation strategy failed, a different model emerged in 1974. Secretary of State Kissinger and allied nations decided to move toward formal international cooperation. They established the International Energy Agency, or the IEA. Its purpose was to coordinate a collective defense against future energy crises. The core of this defense is a legal mandate. Every IEA member must maintain a strategic oil reserve equal to at least 90 days of their previous year's imports. This creates a massive, shared stockpile that acts as a global shock absorber. The system was first tested in 1991 during the Gulf War. When Iraqi and Kuwaiti oil was pulled from the market, the IEA coordinated a massive release from these reserves, stabilizing prices and preventing a global shortage. It has functioned the same way during natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina and geopolitical shocks like the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Most recently, the IEA authorized the release of 400 million barrels of oil to counteract the current volatility in the Middle East. These shared reserves demonstrate that modern economic security is built on a foundation of pooled risk. In the 1980s, deregulation further accelerated this shift. Leaders like Ronald Reagan moved away from government-controlled energy policies, allowing market forces to integrate the global supply. Instead of fighting for self-sufficiency, nations began buying and selling energy on a massive, open international grid. This created a web of mutual dependence. Producers became reliant on global sales to fund their national budgets, while consumers became reliant on the grid to power their industries. The dream of total independence was replaced by the practical efficiency of a globally integrated market. This integration is exactly what helped mitigate the crisis in Ireland. By being plugged into the global safety net, the local shortage was absorbed by the larger emergency system. But this same connectivity also creates a vulnerability. If a hostile nation controls a significant portion of the supply, they can use the grid as a tool of geopolitical pressure. During the 2022 Russia-Ukraine conflict, Moscow attempted to do exactly that. leveraging European dependence on its natural gas to try and influence political outcomes. Building a fortress for isolation has proven impossible in the modern age. True resilience is found in these collaborative buffers and the shared insurance required to withstand the moments when the world turns against you. Right now, the entire global economy relies heavily on a single physical bottleneck. It's the Strait of Hormuz. This map shows the fragile setup. Every day, 20 million barrels of crude oil and 20% of global liquefied natural gas force through this tight 21-mile gap. That fuel primarily flows to manufacturing hubs across East Asia. Any military conflict or brief disruption in this specific strait triggers immediate panic across international markets. Geography dictates destiny in the fossil fuel era. As long as ships have to pass through Hormuz, the global manufacturing sector remains a permanent hostage to Middle Eastern stability. The United States is the largest producer of oil and gas on the planet. Because of this volume, politicians like Donald Trump have publicly argued that America enjoys total energy independence and doesn't even need the Strait of Hormuz. Yet, during a recent geopolitical flare-up, Trump abruptly reversed course, posting an angry demand for the strait to be reopened immediately. That happens because the global oil market is entirely integrated. Unless a government steps in to heavily subsidize fuel, a move that usually suffocates domestic industry, local consumers are completely exposed to global price fluctuations. When supply drops on the other side of the planet, the global cost of crude oil immediately spikes, and American drivers are suddenly forced to pay over $4 a gallon at the pump. As long as the economy runs on fossil fuels, energy independence is an illusion. A geographic choke point anywhere guarantees economic pain everywhere. The widely accepted escape route from this hostage situation is to walk away from oil completely, build solar arrays, transition to electric vehicles, and erect massive wind farms. If you don't need petroleum, you don't care about the Strait of Hormuz. You strip the Middle East of its strategic leverage, but this chart shows the harsh mathematical reality. Despite decades of green initiatives, fossil fuels still account for an overwhelming 87% of global energy consumption. Replacing that massive slice of the pie will require decades of sustained, high-volume industrial manufacturing to build enough batteries and turbines to run the world. Shifting the energy source doesn't eliminate geopolitical risk. It just transfers the leverage from the nations that pump the oil to the nations that build the hardware. Building a modern clean energy grid requires specific materials. The foundational ingredients for this tech are rare earth elements. Securing them starts with extracting raw materials from the earth on a staggering scale, tearing deep into the crust. Once extracted, those raw rocks must be chemically processed and refined to manufacture highly specialized components, specifically the high-performance magnets required to make wind turbines and EV motors function. This diagram shows the exact supply chain pipeline. China controls 68% of rare earth mining, 90% of processing, and 94% of magnet manufacturing. If flow halts here, the rest of the world has virtually zero capacity to bypass the bottleneck. Building a green grid doesn't create independence. It moves the global energy supply from a spread-out oil market into a system where every single turbine and battery depends entirely on the output of one nation's factories. Successfully moving away from fossil fuels means running headfirst into a unified Chinese monopoly. Beijing has already demonstrated a clear willingness to use its rare earth dominance as a geopolitical weapon to pressure its rivals. Intentionally restricting access to these processed elements paralyzes global high-tech manufacturing just as effectively as blocking a physical oil shipment. The United States and its Western allies find themselves uniquely exposed to this entirely new type of modern trade embargo. Weaponizing the supply chain makes the shiny new green energy grid just as vulnerable to hostile state action as the old oil grid. This comparison shows the physical reality of the ocean bottleneck next to the architecture of a hardware supply chain. They share the exact same structural flaw. A sudden disruption in either system guarantees the exact same catastrophic economic freeze. Despite the promises made by politicians, there is no completely secure, risk-free energy solution available to any global power. Instead of asking if we can escape the Middle East, We have to ask how nations will navigate a future where their energy security is defined by manufacturing choke points rather than shipping lanes.